in progress.
Okay, we're good.
Should it be up there automatically? Is it gonna, because your Google screen was up there when I hit allow.
Wait a second.
All right, now we get started. Evening, everybody. I pledge allegiance to the flag
From which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I wish to announce that the 48-hour notice, as required under the Open Public Meetings Act, is emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Co-Star, and the New Co-Star on December the 13th of 2022. That a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office, and that a copy has been filed with the borough clerk. Mr. Marco?
Present.
Mrs. Noble?
Here.
Mr. Gubatose?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
Here.
Mayor Fox?
Here. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our 15th meeting of the year. We got a lot to cover tonight. We're going to continue to try to work both the problems and opportunities for the community. We don't have any workshops tonight, but we do have one ordinance for introduction on portable storage units. I'm going to make a motion to table the other introduction we had, 450 revisions. It's still in the review process with our attorney. It's a significant body of work, and he apologized, but couldn't get through all of it before the appropriate time. Additionally, we have one ordinance for adoption covering the new landlord registration process that we've been working on for a number of months. So as I said, there are no workshop. The fifth item on the agenda is the workshops, and we do not have any. So I'll move to presentations and bids. And there I have a proclamation that I will read on the Chinatown by the Sea proclamation. Whereas Chinese Americans first came to Bradley Beach circa 1923, when the Church of All Nations, a Methodist settlement house on New York City's Lower East Side, took over the Cliff Villa at 110 Cliff Avenue as a summer getaway for immigrants eager to escape the teeming hot city streets. And whereas Chinese Americans stayed at Cliff Villa during the first few weeks of every summer and eventually began renting homes for themselves for their entire season in the 1930s. And whereas Chinese Americans began buying homes in Bradley Beach following the purchase of a bungalow on Newark Avenue for $2,000 in 1943 by Li Ning-shi, wife of Li B. Locke, a successful Chinatown merchant. And whereas Newark Avenue, considered by many as the equivalent of Mott Street in New York City's Chinatown, became the epicenter of Chinese American life down at the shore. And whereas Chinese Americans have a deep, abiding connection to Bradley Beach, and whereas Chinese Americans contribute to the rich diversity of Bradley Beach, a special seaside town that first welcomed them and made them feel comfortable a century ago, now therefore be it proclaimed that the mayor and council of Bradley Beach do recognize as part of the 130th anniversary of the borough's founding, the designation of Chinatown by the Sea to encompass Newark Avenue, Cliff Avenue, and the neighboring streets that generations of Chinese Americans call home. Dated August 16th, 2023. For those who are not aware, there is an event, and I have it here somewhere, on August 26th that we're going to get onto the website that invites you to a celebration. It's going to be at the Firehouse on the 26th of August, and I'm not finding it, but we'll get it out on the website so that everybody can see it. Okay, thank you. Let's move now to the next agenda item, which is the approval of minutes. Make a motion to approve the minutes of the July 26th regular council meeting. Second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Make a motion to approve the July 26th, 2023 executive session minutes. Everybody in a second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yeah.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, agenda item number 8, public comments pertaining to the 8:16 agenda items only, 5-minute limit, single instance to speak per participant, whether in person or virtual. So are there any questions on the agenda? Yes.
Good evening, Joe Kulik, Mountain Avenue, ordinance 2023-13 in regards to containers. Would this be applicable to the container that sits in front of Auto Tech? Which seems to be a permanent fixture of our town? Any comments from anybody?
Yes, give us a second to process your question.
I'm sorry, what?
Give us a second to process
Oh,
your question.
okay.
I'm thinking about the ordinance.
Well, it does say that one of the changes is regarding the front envelope of the property, correct?
Well, it's the amount of time, actually,
Okay.
what you are saying exactly. Right now, you can have a dumpster out for 30 days, and then after that, you can renew it and have it another 30 days, and there's just no end to it. So what we were trying to do is come up with a time frame that's reasonable for not only the people doing construction, but reasonable for the neighbors that surround the construction as well. We've
Okay,
had people-
Jane, so for right now, it's just a continuing situation.
Unfortunately, that's what we've been seeing, and that's why we wanted to change it. We've had incidents on public
Yeah.
streets. We've had it in people's driveways that were using it as a dumping station. Even though it was on their private property, they would continually dump into it. So we had to revisit this ordinance and try and get some new boundaries.
Yeah, well, as I spoke to you before, it's a matter of aesthetics of making our town look good, because you drive by there and it kind of looks like a construction company, you know, with the machinery out there and the dumpsters there all the time. You know, I just don't think it makes our town look,
It's
Yeah.
a very good point you bring up. Are they doing construction currently?
I'm sorry, what?
Are they under construction currently?
I think they're cleaning out the building right now. And I think that might be the second dumpster. I saw about 3 weeks ago, they just about filled it. I think they're completely emptying out the building.
I did talk to DiBiagio about it. I said, well, why can't he move the dumpster to the back of the building? He says his property line only goes like 5 feet behind the building, so he can't do that. I thought maybe that would have been a solution, so.
Yeah, plus,
Okay,
yeah.
well, just a
Maybe
point.
perhaps we could have Paul Murphy take a look at it.
Sure.
Okay, all right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Brigitte McGuire, 610 Brindley Ave. I noticed on the bills list, there's a bill for health insurance, Brown and Brown. I also noticed Brown and Brown supported your campaign, Mayor Fox, and I'm just not sure if something has to be filed publicly, and if it was sort of like a nepotism thing. Can someone tell me how this works?
I
Mr.
could,
Mayor, if I
Yeah,
can,
sure.
Brown and Brown was the borough's risk manager for health insurance. On July 3rd, that contract was canceled. We had to provide them 90 days notice. So they are not going to be continuing in that role past October 1st.
Okay, but they did. So was there a conflict there? Is there?
no, you can get contributions from people that work in the municipal engineers and others. As business administrator Fehrenbach said, we make decisions on an objective basis. We made a decision to cease that service because we didn't think we were getting what we needed to get from it. And it wasn't worth the value. So I think that's an indication that hopefully it's an indication to you that we make decisions based on the best for the community. In this case,
Oh, that's wonderful, but if they were still hired and they still contribute to campaign, is there like a pay to play type of thing?
yeah, there is. We abide by those rules. Yes.
Okay, so does that have to be a public thing? Is that
Yes,
something
it's
we see?
it's submitted as part of your ELEC. It's submitted on a quarterly basis to the state.
Okay, is that something that has to be presented publicly to the council or anything? And just, I don't know, so I'm just
No,
asking.
just going to ELEC
Let me
and
just do a quick thing. So the state, so it's all governed in state law, it's a state agency. If you're a candidate for public office, you're seeking to influence the outcome of any elections being held. You must file disclosures of anyone at this moment in history, of anyone who gives you more than $200.
Okay,
So that's publicly available to everyone.
Yep.
Doesn't create a conflict for the contractor or the elected official.
right, as long as it's.
There's
filed.
maximum contribution
Okay.
limits of 5,200. If
Okay.
you give more than 200, then you can no longer be anonymous.
Okay,
Because you're affecting our elections, and then you need, everyone should know who you are. And the contractor, so someone like my friend, if you receive more than $50,000 in public contracts per year. As a firm, you must file a disclosure with the Election Law Enforcement Commission. That indicates any reportable contributions above $200 that you've given as a professional during the year. So
okay,
that the public knows who's giving, who's receiving, and they can make their own judgments accordingly, just like you do in any other federal level for defense contractors or anything else.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that one was, since it pertains to our. borough, so-
Isn't it 300?
So it was 300 until July 1st.
Oh,
July 1st, the limit was lowered. The Elections Transparency Act lowered the limit to
Yeah.
$200.
I haven't run for anything since July 1st, so.
no, the law just changed.
But I just want to add, Brigitte, that
Thank
the town's pay-to-play law sets the threshold even lower than what the state had been.
So the Elections Transparency Act has limited all
Oh, that's right.
our ballot ordinance is no longer valid. It's all governed by state law now.
So we
Okay.
used to have one that was stricter than the state.
Yes,
Oh,
it was
cool.
$275 here.
Yeah, it used to be,
July
it was 275 for us, yes. yes.
Okay,
And that was a maximum contribution for anyone, so any professional working for the town. The principals of those firms or themselves, their self-proprietor, could not give any of your elected officials here in town more than $275, or they were disqualified from receiving a public contract from the town. Now, the town,
okay,
the Elections Transparency Act has wiped all those municipal ordinances out, so that the rules I espoused at the beginning are the same in every town in the state now.
so if I'm on the ELEC website looking at the, the contributions, is that listed under there, like the filed pay to play, like would I see that
Oh, yeah.
on there?
You can look up my firm, you can look up me, I'm a councilman in Aberdeen, and you can look up my reports, who gives me money to run for office in my town, you can any elected official, and the whole state.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Per Penny 216 Brittany Ave, question regarding 223, 218. Mayor Fox, I sent you an email a couple days ago,
Just let me get to 222,
the grace
223.
period for the third quarter.
Yes,
Did you receive my email?
I didn't. I responded to it.
You did
I did.
today?
Yes.
Okay, I'll check. Okay, because my question is, are you going to submit a correction to your last week's newsletter where you were?
I responded to you.
I know you can respond to everybody else here,
Well, I read the email and then give me a call if you have a question. Well, there was a number of things that you asked on the email and I tried to respond to all those
right?
things.
Okay, in specific, are you going to correct the errors you had?
I
in
said
your text?
I was gonna talk to the business administrator and CFO about the best way to approach it.
Okay, so you believe that your email is correct, or you believe that there were significant errors in your?
No, there weren't significant errors. It was-
There weren't significant errors.
Well, okay, why don't you read the memo? You can call me. I clarified the points that you made to you. There was an error in a from to, but
From two, you had 1 point something% for every tax increase in the town.
Mr. Kenny, why don't you read the memo? and
I know,
can
but
talk
I
to-
am going to address that question. You're gonna tell me that wasn't an error?
I ask you to read the memo and then we can talk. Thank you. Yeah,
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. With regard to the executive session, I just want to comment that The beach has been doing amazing. The parks look incredible. The garbage pickup has been phenomenal.
I'm sorry, Ms. Cohen, you said you wanted to talk about what topic? I didn't catch you in the beginning. I'm sorry.
Executive session. Executive session.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I was
So I'm gonna start
trying,
again.
I was trying to get the connection.
Yeah, the beach looked amazingly groomed. The parks look incredible. The garbage pickup has been flawless. I'm hoping you can come to a negotiation and give the Public Works Department a contract. So I hope that evolves as it should. Also, thank you for the ordinance on the dumpsters. This has been a continuing problem. Not for the outside contractors, but for the residents. So it's about time we do ordinances for the residents. It took months to get the dumpster taken out on McCabe Avenue, and I'd like to see that no resident has to go through that ever again. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yes,
Dean Schiffers, 112 Fourth Avenue. Question about King Lear. Do we have any idea how many people went to see the program?
I don't, I would suggest it was in excess of 100, because I went to one of the two performances. It was about 50, and I heard that the next day it was about the same. So I'd say between 100 and 125 people.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, questions on the board, Mr. Greenberg?
Unmute. Hi, how you doing? Don Greenberg, 302 Park Place Ave. Just a question on a comment actually on the dumpster ordinance. I get why we're revising the ordinance, especially given what happened on McCabe and with the dumpster at Autotech. But I do think 4 weeks is not enough time. If you're doing a total gut of a house or a total demo of a house, I mean, what if you get rain for a week? What if you have staffing issues? Or subcontractor issues? I think 4 weeks is a little too low amount of time. I think maybe it should be extended to 6 weeks. I mean, I understand quality of life issues, but there are realities in today's business world with staffing, with supplies, and of course with weather. So I just think it should be extended to 6 weeks instead of 4. And that's my comment.
Thank you.
Paul Champion.
Yes, Mr. Champion.
Good evening, Paul.
Thank you. Paul Champion, 411.5 Lorraine Avenue. I see again that there's an agenda item for resolution for the engineering company to start the process of demolition of 319 Lorraine Avenue. I'm wondering whether the borough has made any attempts to find a buyer who might be willing to buy the building to save it as is. Certainly that should be done. I know several parties that might be interested, but nobody has approached me. And as far as I know, there's been no search for a buyer, and I think there should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's it.
I do not see any more hands up. Okay.
Okay, let's move to ordinances. Agenda item number 9. As I said, the chapter 450, we'll probably see that in the September meeting, September meeting. We'll move to ordinance 2023-13, which is an ordinance amending chapter 3. Oh, yes, you're correct. Thank you for that.
Sorry.
Thank you for that. I'll make a motion to table ordinance 2023-12. I would say till the one of the 2 September council meetings.
September 13th.
Yeah. Anybody want to second that?
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes, thank you, Erica,
You're
for
welcome.
catching that for me. Ordinance 2023-13, an ordinance amending chapter 348 portable storage units and dumpsters on the borough as revised. General ordinance to update the regulation pertaining to same. So on that ordinance, first start off with any council comments.
I did get your email about having a meeting with maybe Steve Lasaka and the chief. And I think that's a great idea, and I'd like to set that up as soon as possible and get this on for our next meeting.
So would we like to table this?
Yeah, we'll table it for now and then work out a few. I think we have to talk about the time, if 4 weeks, 6 weeks, what works best for the residents.
Well, then I will make a motion to table ordinance 2023-13 until the September 13th meeting.
Second,
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. DeNoble?
yes.
Mr. Curatolo?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yeah.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, is it possible for me to request 2 volunteers on the council to meet on that committee? Sure. And then I'll try to set that up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's go to adoptions. Public hearing and vote for adoptions. We have one ordinance for public hearing and adoption, that's 2023-3, an ordinance amending the supplementing chapter 365 rental property of the borough's revised ordinances to enact landlord registration regulations. We'll start with any council comments, if there are any.
I did, actually. I have a few questions. I know sweeping revisions are included in here to take out all the prior references to summer rentals. But just a couple of the provisions of summer rentals, I was wondering if they need to be addressed in this ordinance. So, Mr. Cannon. Greg Cannon.
I'm sorry.
Forgive me, I'm sorry, we're setting up the meeting for the dumpster ordinance.
Okay. But my question on the short-term rental ordinance, which I know you spent a good amount of time updating for us. There were a couple of areas in particular, let me just reference you to them. Under the old ordinance for summer rentals, section 365-16. 365-16, section H and I refer to inspections. And most of that seems still relevant to me, other than, we'd have to strike the word summer rentals, but do we need language, or do we have language based on your legal expertise, just around, scheduling inspections to be a certain period of time? We had it May 1st. That, there could be a re-inspection if they failed, that kind of language. It seemed pretty standard to me, but it also seemed important. H and I.
Yeah, I see it on here. So I know that when we discussed this with Mr. Murphy. I thought you were asking him about when he would be inspecting. He seemed to believe that that in lieu of that, they'd be doing, I don't know, forgive me. You want to do an annual CO inspection, as I recall, and then for the summer rentals, he would do it upon the initial registration for the season. So that, or the shorter term rentals. So those places would get twice a year, and then any other basically like regular rental, a year-long house would get the once a year for the CO. You're shaking your head, so I think I remember it correctly.
No, I think that's right, but at this point, what you just described, I don't think we've captured that in here, and I'm wondering, do we need to? Do we need to just have some statement that states, we'll conduct these inspections? Maybe it is, maybe I missed it.
We left it's 365-4.
Yes, on that.
And we left it open. Because Mr. Murphy said that the CO inspection requires a minimum every year. And that he would basically administratively do it every time when the rental registration was initially. And then he might do it more often for the properties that he knew needed more frequent inspections. So 4 is left open-ended, as I recall, for that reason. Because if he goes back the 4th or 5th time to someone, and then you're not following the ordinance, but you might need to be there 4 or 5 times, depending on Mr. Murphy's experience with particular properties. So that was my recollection as to why we left it open-ended. It does call for inspections.
Right, it doesn't mention time frame. It doesn't mention.
no, it left that open-ended for him because of what he said at our meeting as to how he was admitted, he was going to administer it.
Okay, all right. The one other question I had, and this is a very, well, maybe it's very unique to Bradley. It may not be totally unique. There may be other boroughs, especially shore communities that deal with this, but the prior section 365-24, it was referencing the fact that someone who had a summer rental basically had to make sure that if there were children in a family that the unit was being rented year round outside of the summer for the school year, there was reference specifically that they basically had to make sure kids could be there for the start and end of school. And I'm thinking that, assuming we think that's good law, I'm thinking that should still apply for any, this is now generic rentals, not just summer, but to the extent there's a year round, there's I'm sorry, September to May rental that someone could do. And then, ask their tenants to leave for the summer. I was thinking we should still have language that would protect the school children.
That was in my original draft. But I don't remember the source. But someone told me this is a large problem here, essentially when you could get more money for your house than living in it. And then people would just sacrifice the first 2 weeks of their kid's school year for income. And now that's not really a problem here anymore, given the home values and the fact that this is really intended to address what's essentially commercial. You're seeing more like that process of the family kind of doing it is now commercialized, which is what's necessitating this need. I was told that it wasn't a problem in Bradley Beach anymore. Don't remember why we removed it, but it was in my original, it was number 7 in my original draft, which is now reserved.
Okay.
Because that was one of those things that's like, that was unique to the town here. And so I left it in there because I didn't know what it was. Someone told me to took it out, and I'm not like playing games. I legitimately do not remember who told me it's not a problem here anymore. But I don't, it could be number, we could put it back in a subsequent ordinance as number 7 if you want.
Does anyone have a reason that we think we don't need that protection for families now, kids? So, I mean, I'd be inclined to ask to put it back in if pretty good reasons not to.
You'd have to reintroduce this ordinance to do that.
Let me ask this.
I could suggest.
If you go through the process of doing a new ordinance, it will require a new publication. So wouldn't it be possible to be able to adopt this one as it is and then only have to advertise that small change instead of advertising the whole ordinance all over again?
Yeah, I mean, I could, like, literally while we're sitting here, I go back to my prior draft and just draft it here for a future meeting. If you wanted to adopt this one, you wanted to put that back in as number 7, I could do that while I'm sitting here.
So I know this.
Your reports.
Yeah.
But this is a public hearing, so this is the second reading.
Yeah.
And as the second reading, would you consider this to be a major amendment?
Adding another section definitely
It
requires.
would be a major amendment, so I'm simply saying for economy purposes, you may want to basically just do an ordinance that would just have that paragraph in it instead of re-advertising the whole thing all over again.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend too. I mean, I see, I mean, it clearly addresses the need that arose here in Bradley Beach, so I was hesitant to take it out to begin with. But I mean, I can literally have that drafted by the time this meeting is up, because I already have everything right here in front of me. Then we can bring it up next meeting if you'd like, but I would recommend you adopt this one to get Mr. Murphy on his way. With everything else.
Adopt this,
Yeah.
and then separately amend the ordinance again for this paragraph.
I believe we're up to 14 now, right? For
Mhm.
2023?
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be 2023, 14, and we can just introduce that at the next meeting. Making the commencement of summer rental or premises are occupied by school-age children. Just, I reserved number 7 because I had a feeling there would be unique issues at Bradley Beach.
Okay. That's fine by me as long as, we just calendar that for next meeting to make sure we do the amendment. Okay. Sorry, I didn't raise that question sooner.
No, that's okay. We went back and forth on that a couple of times, to be honest with you, during the thing. I had the original and then. The information was that it was, I can't, and I legit, let me just say, Greg, I can't remember, but someone said, that's not really a problem here anymore, because it's more commercialized. It's not really like the family rentals anymore, but there might be some still out there, so it's what we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other council comments? If not, I'll make a motion to open the public comments on ordinance 2023 and ask for a limit of 3 minutes on comments. Do I have a second?
Okay.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, the hearing is open. Does anybody have a comment? Yes.
Thomas J. Cohen, 6 Holt Third Avenue. I'd like to thank the council for putting this together. This is a long time coming. And you really did listen to the folks with the Airbnbs. You listened to the residents, and I think we got a very good outcome here. This guideline that you're creating does mimic this state statute. It does give Mr. Murphy the ability to get the insurance certificates and the registration, so that he actually knows who's responsible and who to contact. So I think this protects the businesses, the Airbnb folks, and most importantly, the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then I will make a motion to close the public hearing and to move to adopt 2023-3.
Second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Note here, excuse me. Okay, we'll move to communications. We have 2 communications, special law enforcement, class 2 employee memo, and also seasonal lifeguard memo. I think those are the 2. We'll move to the consent agenda. We have 3 things on the consent agenda: 2023-213 bill list for August 16th. 2023-214, approval of Special Olympics New Jersey to reschedule their previously approved 5K race from Saturday, November 4th, 2023 to Saturday, November 18th, 2023, from 10:30 to 12. It's a pass-through run only, confirmed twice. And 2023-215, approval for the Bradley Beach Historical Society to conduct their Chinatown by the Sea celebration at the Firehouse Banquet Hall Saturday, August 26th from 1 to 7. And 2023-216, approval of probationary firefighter appointments. Make a motion.
Mr. Mayor, could we separately vote on 216, please?
What's the rationale?
I'd like to have their names read in public.
Okay. Sure. 2023-230, so make a motion to approve the consent agenda for
I think you have to make a motion to remove
first.
2023-216.
Yeah, make a motion, remove 2023-216 to individual resolutions. Have a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. So now I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda resolutions for 2023-213, 14, and 15. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, individual resolutions. We can start with 2023-216. Approval of probationary firefighter appointments. I suppose Councilman, you have the names.
Oh, yes, in there. Right, you do the.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to read the names of the 4 probationaries. Are any of those here today? No, they aren't. Okay. Be it resolved by the following members were accepted as probationary firefighters, Bradley Beach Fire Department. Sky A. Becker, Ryan A. Petrillo, Dylan T. Federici, Brian T. Crean. So I'll make a motion to approve those probationary firefighters. Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Thank you for your service. Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
I really wanted those names read out loud just because it's so important in this day and age. our volunteer efforts across the borough, but especially with fire and first aid struggled in recruitment, and I was thrilled to see 4 new members be named as probationary members. So I vote yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Individual resolutions, we have a number of those. First is 2023-200A, amendment to the fund account number for resolution 2023-200, authorizing CME to prepare an application to the county of Monmouth for open space trust funds to fund improvements to the recreation center park at 39 Main Street at a cost of $1,200. Make a motion to approve 2023-200.
I just had a question, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor. It doesn't say, how, I know we discussed this at a prior meeting where we talked about perhaps requesting funds for a dog park or for treescape. Is there any indication as to what new things are being requested?
Well, first of all, the only purpose of this resolution is because there was a typographical error. Somebody touched a 5 instead of touching a 6. And so that is the only reason for the resolution. In answer to your question, the engineer contacted the grant agency to try to understand what would be probably in the realm of acceptable, so the borough would not be seen as being greedy and therefore not be as eligible for having a successful grant application. My memory is that it includes the basketball court, the tennis court, it includes the playground equipment that was in addition. Any additional costs that may have been involved in trying to change the walkway so the trees could be saved. Those, as I recall, were some of the additions to it. A dog park was not part of the concept, especially being adjacent to the railroad and what that could possibly mean.
Okay, it's helpful just to understand the expanded scope. I will second the mayor's motion.
Ms. DeMarco?
Yes.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2023-217, authorizing the execution of a commodity resale agreement with the county of Monmouth. Make a motion to approve 2023-217.
Second.
Ms. DeMarco?
Yes.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2023-218, authorizing extended grace period for 2023 third quarter real estate taxes. Make a motion to approve 2023-218.
A second.
Ms. DeMarco?
Yes.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2023-219, rejection of bids for the improvement to Park Place Phase 1 and authorization of a rebid to secure better pricing. Make a motion to approve 2023-219.
Second.
Ms. DeMarco?
Yes.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
I'm going to vote, but I have a quick question, which is, we only had 2 bidders. Is there a reason why we had such little interest in this, Mr. Garbuck, you know, or?
We don't know, but the assumption is that it may have been a result of the timing when we went out to bid. So we're trying to give a greater amount of time. And being somewhat later in the season, we think that may have a benefit, allowing possibly the work to go over the winter. So we're hoping that improves it, but yes, it did concern us that we only received 2 bids.
Right, are we, through our agent, through our engineer, are we able to reach out and encourage bidders? I mean, not we, the council.
Yeah.
But our agent? We're just wondering if our agent could do more to solicit things.
I'll raise that.
Okay, I vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a question before I vote, sorry. Am I right that this is to redo the sewers and to pave over basically 2 blocks of Park Place Avenue, correct?
Yes.
Essentially 2, and I was making a big deal out of it, and this is like $500,000, $500,000 to do 2 blocks. And they all the bids came in way over, like 800,000. Okay, so are we in this, a new world, or do you really think we're gonna do better at a different time of year? Because I'm just trying to, like, 2 blocks and then we got a lot of sewers left to do. I know those are bigger projects and it's different in some ways, but I'm just trying to add this all up.
The engineer indicated that, recent experience in some other jurisdictions, seem to be having similar effects. What look like, inflated numbers compared to what one was seeing in the spring. Whether or not that continues or not, he's not able to predict at this point.
Okay, so we're gonna take our chances, but I will also vote yes, and thank you for answering my question.
Thank you. Mayor Fox.
Yes. 2023-220 rejection of proposals for the sanitary sewer system analysis. Make a motion to approve 2023.
I have a question about this as well. Does this mean that we are not pursuing this at all?
I do not believe that's what it means. You have to make a decision as to what you wish to do. It's based on the analysis that I gave you earlier, and then the report that I provided to all of you in terms of the advice I had received from NJDEP. I was not a part of this from the very beginning, so I have some difficulty addressing, the circumstances, but it appeared from what I was able to glean from the material that the original objective was to have an engineering firm evaluate the condition of the system in anticipation of a financial firm being able to come up with essentially a value for it. In terms of the process of going before NJDEP, what I ended up learning was that there are a couple of things to understand. One is that there is this WIPA set of criteria that need to be satisfied. And none of those criteria really require engineering. The second piece of it is that they were suggesting well, let me back up. Mr. Shushius came to a meeting, I think a couple meetings ago, at least one meeting ago. And he talked about an ability to go in for a predetermination. And as I think I indicated to all of you, according to the DEP people and the WIPA unit, there is no such thing as a predetermination. But there is what they call a pre-application meeting. And in the pre-application meeting, which would be made up of an administrative person and maybe 1 or 2 elected officials to meet with representatives of maybe 4 different areas of DEP that deal with this. You could bring in a financial consultant that you may have or financial analyst, or you may just come in to talk about the 5 sets of criteria and the ability of the municipality to conform to those or not conform to those. And so in any of the alternatives that they describe, the evaluation by the engineer did not seem to be a prerequisite to be able to proceed. So it seemed to me that under those circumstances, not to keep these engineers on the hook for several months, that it would be better to make it clear at this point that the municipality is not going to proceed with the engineering evaluation, but that doesn't prevent the municipality from continuing to pursue the appearance before DEP to get an understanding from them as to how they see the circumstances. Recognize we're also dealing with a wastewater collection system. And their priorities are essentially water treatment and supply systems. And then wastewater treatment systems, and then wastewater collection systems, and we're sort of at the bottom of the pecking order.
Quick follow-up question. Was it DEP that said they've never seen the sale of just a collection only system?
So, no, they haven't had before then in the WIPA process, a collection system.
Okay.
Not that they haven't seen the sale of one.
Okay.
But I didn't ask that question. It was just dealing with the Water Infrastructure Protection Act administration.
So that doesn't mean that we, okay, that was sort of, you answered my question. Doesn't mean we can't, just because it's never come before in the WIPA process, doesn't mean that we can't sell it just because of the collection only system.
Frankly, almost any asset you have other than a public right of way, you can probably sell.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Weber, just, just to follow up on this, Mr. Shishius did say, we were talking, and you can see the numbers here, we were talking about proposals that were $50,000 up to $80,000. And it was Mr. Shishius who said, you can do a kind of an upfront analysis a heck of a lot cheaper to just understand if we'd even qualify for the WIPA. So at the end of last meeting, I think we were all largely agreed that we probably would not move forward, and this is really formalizing that with the bidders. On the other hand, I'm, as just speaking for myself, I'm still interested in arranging to have that meeting, perhaps with a professional, far cheaper price tag, perhaps, just so we can continue the now 2-year-long process of exploring this for due diligence.
Okay, thank you. I think you're in the middle of making the motion. I asked the question, Mr. Mayor, so back to you.
Well, I made the motion, but I'll do it again. 2023-220, make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes, 2023-221, authorizing CME Engineers to perform additional general engineering services for the borough. Make a motion.
I have questions on this one too, before you make the motion. I actually have a concern just with the wording here. I don't know how many folks in the public are familiar with it, but we're basically being asked to approve $20,000 of available money to spend with one of our engineers, CME. But my concern is really the lack of specificity in the language. We're being asked to approve $20,000 to spend for attendance at public meetings to discuss the status of borough projects with the council and the public. But without more specificity, I don't know how important it is to have our engineers attend our meetings, but also provide general engineering advice to the Community Development Department, the Borough Administrator, and the Department of Public Works. And again, from my perspective, without having a better understanding of why we're engaging the borough administrator, the engineer rather, I'm not comfortable approving a $20,000 spend. Let me say one last thing. The reason we reduced the bid threshold, I know this doesn't apply because they've already exceeded the prior bid threshold anyway, but the reason we reduced the bid threshold on our professionals we're trying to reduce it to $4,000, is because the council wants to have a better understanding of how we're spending money on professionals. And this description, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't provide sufficient information for me to make that decision to approve.
Mayor,
Sure, absolutely.
First, if you had a borough engineer, which you do not have, I wouldn't be here asking for this. Secondly, staff people, whether it be the public works director, or it be the zoning officer, or it be the construction official, or it be the administrator, periodically need engineering advice in order to be able to proceed with something. If you'll recall, I came before you at a recent meeting asking you for an authorization to be able to deal with curb, line, and grade in a couple of problematic locations. That would be funded out of this ordinance. The engineering is a basic tenet. Most, no, I shouldn't say most, many municipalities have an engineer on staff who they can just go to when the engineer comes out. Others have them by contract, and under contract, they have an ability to be able to bring them out. We don't have that now. If you find the $20,000 amount to be something that concerns you, even though that was authorized, that amount was authorized by the governing body back in January, then I would suggest you make that number 15,000, or you make that number 10,000. But all I can say is that the staff's hands end up being tied if they don't have an ability to have that resource available to them.
So this kind of an expenditure is 2,000, 3,000, those kinds of expenditures.
250.
250, yes, small expenditures.
This is essentially pay as you go borough engineer.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
And the reason we're at that point is in part because some of us, at least I believe, we've had a spend problem that needs to be curbed. And that perhaps there's too much spend taking place with professionals. And my goal was always to just say, until we understand why we're spending this money, the general comments about showing up at meetings, and especially $20,000. Mr. Fehrenbach, you referenced in January it was authorized?
Yes.
Well, specifically, if this was authorized in January, why is it before us now?
No, I'm saying you authorized 20,000 in January and it's been depleted.
Oh, I understand. This is the next one.
Yes.
Okay. I would feel much more comfortable authorizing smaller increments and having more information. I'm willing to authorize much larger dollar amounts if we have specified details of projects, but again, just in general, conversing with folks, I'm gonna follow with the mayor's comment that if we're talking $500 or $2,000, you know, I can see that. Me personally, I don't know how others will vote, but I can see authorizing a smaller dollar amount and seeing how long that lasts us.
Then if the governing body's willing, then reduce it to 10, and my successor, I hope, will be the one that comes to you next for something more, or there will be a decision made that won't require this sort of an action.
Okay,
Councilman Gubatose, if it goes
Please.
down to 10, would you be comfortable passing this tonight?
I would.
And then I have a question. So we really only spent $20,000 on engineering services from January till now.
No, we've authorized other.
Yeah,
We must have, but when they were specific, we'd authorized. Okay.
for general borough engineer services, you have spent about $20,000, well, but yeah, about $20,000 between January and May, January and June.
This is like, John, for example, the DPW is doing some work out in the street and they dig and they find something in the ground and it requires engineering and they would normally call the borough engineers who would come out there. You know, it's kind of this is the general duties of the borough engineer, essentially.
Gotcha. 10,000 sounds good to me, so I think that I like that and appreciate the explanation.
Or another, more commonly, you see community development, there's plans at the zoning office or the construction office, and they need engineering advice about whether that's okay or not. That's actually much more common than DPW finding something in the ground, to be honest with you.
Anyone else have comments or questions on council? Then I'd like to make a motion to approve this 2023-221.
I think you need to make a motion
To
to
amend.
amend it to 10,000,
Oh, I was gonna say,
and then we'll make a motion to
Okay.
adopt it.
I'll make a motion to amend this resolution 2023-221 from $20,000 to $10,000.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the amended 2023-221 for $10,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yeah,
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2023-222 resolution for the renewal of membership in the Monmouth Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. Make a motion to approve 2023-222.
yeah, second,
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
yes,
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2023-223 authorizing T&M Associates to provide professional environmental and engineering services, bidding assistance, and construction administration services for the demolition of structures located upon 319 Lorraine Avenue. Discussion. Yep.
yes, I do have, concerns about this, again, for the public's benefit, we're talking about approving a $48,000 cap on expenditures for an engineer to assist us doing a lot of review of the 319 Lorraine property. Part of me feels like this property's been reviewed to death. We've had numerous analyses around asbestos and lead, and we actually paid T&M Associates a good amount of money, over $250,000, I believe, roughly, don't hold me to that, to help us with all sorts of design issues and evaluation of the structure and so on. At this juncture, I'd like to understand, if I could, maybe from the mayor, from our business administrator, to be blunt, why do we need T&M at this point? Because my understanding is we could go to the market to demolition organizations and we could say to them, bid on this, the demolition of this church, give them access so they could review the church, and let them bring in whatever assessment they need, but have that all bundled under their price rather than spending another $50,000 for an engineer to coordinate that project. That's my question.
I'll start.
Yeah, let me mention one thing, that we had three bids, not bids, but on the RF.
Three responses to the
Three responses.
request for proposal.
Yes, and I think the range was 48 to somewhere close to 70,000. So this was
Yes.
clearly the lower of the three.
Right, that's what
Part of the reason I think, yeah, you all have that. Part of the reason I believe it was the lowest of the three was that T&M had a very in-depth understanding of that building, and the others maybe not so much. So they had a little bit of an advantage here, but just because of the work that they did. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
I originally went to CME to ask them to just do this. And Mr. Gubatose, you and I had a discussion about that. You had a concern about, how much was it going to be? I thought it was going to come in the, I don't know, $5,000 to $10,000. When I got done speaking with Mr. Matlack, he made it clear to me that there were a number of issues that have to be identified in advance of the demolition company going onto the site, dealing with asbestos, lead-based paint, and other universal toxins or something along those lines. So we then had a request for proposal made up. And well, let me say, before I did that, I went through all of the material that had been generated from the 319 Lorraine investigations previously. I submitted those to Mr. Matlack for Mr. Matlack to review, thinking, well, that may end up resolving his concerns and we're not going to have to bring in an environmental consultant. In the end, he said, no, that's not satisfactory. That was sort of the equivalent of a phase 1 environmental audit. And we have to have the equivalent of a phase 2 environmental audit. And that there was greater environmental analysis that had to be done for those three categories of potential toxins and preventative measures that would have to be taken by a demolition company to be able to make sure that their workers were safe, the residents in the area were safe, etc. So, after all of that, that is when we ended up deciding that we had to go out for something more. And I had no idea it was going to come in this high. But Mr. Matlack had warned me that the environmental analysis and the work done by the environmental people was what was going to eat up most of the cost of the project. So I'd like to see it something where you do it like you used to do before. You get a hold of a demolition person, say, do the markouts, cut the utilities off and take the building down and go off with it. And we'll pay you $7,650 for it. This one doesn't seem to be that way.
It's been in like 1922 or something.
No, that was actually an experience I had in this county 5 years ago.
Well, I think what you and I are discussing is really, it's not that extreme an end of the continuum of just handing them $7,000 and say, go at it, cut the lines. I'm not disagreeing that some of this inspection work should be done, but my understanding, I've jotted down some notes. My understanding is that demolition companies can hire a subcontractor to do this assessment. So the assessment would be done, but if they build that into the price that they charge us, they're likely to be much more competitive than if we hire an independent engineer. My understanding is that what we would need them to address is that all hazardous materials are disposed of in accordance with AHH, which is the authority having jurisdiction, and all local and federal authorities. So my point being, if the demolition companies could include those services in their proposals, it would probably be a lot less than $50,000 to us. That's my understanding. So I'm not saying don't do the services. I'm just saying, can the demolition companies provide a proposal that would include those services? Okay, and then
I guess I would ask this question, it becomes a chicken and egg issue. In order to be able to evaluate the satisfactory performance of the demolition company, you need to have someone who has the ability to be able to do that evaluation. This organization doesn't possess anyone that has the capability of being able to do that. There have to be standards set down in advance for that evaluation and that judgment of the contractor to be able to take place. I'm not sure how you get that when you're having the contractor supply the environmental analysis and who representing the municipality not tied to the contractor is making that judgment and assuring that compliance.
I think we would need a consultant. I think we would need an engineering consultant to help us evaluate those proposals, but I think the standards are pretty well set. I mean, I don't think, any experienced engineering consultant would be duped by someone who says, oh, you don't have to do anything, or you only have to throw water on it. I think there are very clear standards that need to be addressed. There's one other thing, and I've mentioned this, Mr. Bernbach, to you and to the mayor on numerous occasions, and it's really not addressed in the proposal that was submitted by TNM, and that is the architectural salvage.
We've addressed that with TNF.
Well, you've addressed it with TNM, and it's not in their proposal. There's one paragraph that says we'll look at architectural
Okay,
salvage.
well, let me cover two things before you jump to that.
Okay.
First thing is that in speaking with TNM and the business administrator and I spoke with them to clarify a couple of points. I think it was last week. They've done a couple of similar jobs, not to this magnitude, but in the context of demolition of fairly significant buildings. And I didn't write down the list of those, but they're working on those right now. So I feel as though they've got a pretty good, their proposal, I think, is a good one. It's a lot less expensive than the other two, number one. Number two, we clarified with them that's two things. Number one, that the parsonage is included, number one, and number two, that they would write into the bid spec once we provided them with an inventory of what we wanted salvaged, they would write that into the bid spec for the, well, write it into the bid spec. Correct me if like I
Yes,
missed
that's
anything.
correct.
So that's what they have committed to do, and it was pretty clear that was just an assumption that they had, that, yeah, that's in there and we're gonna do it.
And for further clarification, what does that mean when they say they'll write it into the bid spec?
So the specification that they put out to bid, they will be very clear with, there is a salvage portion of this demolition. That salvage includes A through J items that need to be salvaged.
So that are considered to be valuable and important by the municipality, by the client.
How does the client determine what's valuable and how much it's, roughly how much it's worth? That's not in these specifications, is it?
It's not in, well, good. It's not in the specification, but
it's not in the proposal.
But let me just say this, we spent probably about 2 months, a month ago, the mayor going out to various salvage companies. That's trying, let me just say, trying to find interest in the property. The references were made by people in the salvage business. Now, what may be valuable to me or may be valuable to you is valuable to us. The question is will somebody else end up finding it the same way? And what we were basically discussing with the engineer was that they would seek out the market to try to identify all possible avenues of value for what is at this property. The stained glass windows, the pews, the organ and or the organ materials.
Okay, so for starters, I spoke specifically to the mayor about this a couple of months ago, and he said he had talked to one salvage company, not various.
I've talked to a few. I've
Okay.
talked to one in Tom's River. Somebody from Asbury Park actually came in and toured the site with me for 40 minutes.
Nothing's been shared with the
the-
council,
the-
Mr. Mayor. None of your conversations have been shared with the council. We have no idea.
The Ocean Grove Camp Meeting Association has come in twice and spoken to us.
To
So
who?
what's the problem?
To who?
To us, to Greg and I.
Okay, not to the council is what I'm saying. I say the council knows nothing about this, but you're asking us to vote on this. And your response is, you're ignoring the fact that the council knows nothing. You're saying they've come and they've talked to me, they've talked to me and Greg.
Your specific issue is around salvage. We've said, we've talked to TNM.
Right.
And they are going to, and we absolutely will include you in the context of how do we come up with an inventory of what is valuable? Greg mentioned pews, stained glass, pipe organ, maybe woodwork. Fixtures, the person that went through from Asbury Park said it's marginal. The Ocean Grove Camp Meeting Association, who built into this analysis, or built into the original contract that I think Councilman Weber and you were here when that happened. Put a caveat in there that they wanted, call it dibs on any of the artifacts. When we met with them, they want something that's probably the size of that screen. That's all they want. And what we're hearing from all these companies, that the two that I spoke to and from Ocean Grove, is that there is a glut of inventory because of the amount of churches closing in the US. That's not saying that we're just gonna say, well, it's not worth anything, leave it in the church. We want to do an inventory and say, we believe these items have value. And take those out before that's done.
Okay,
So I'm not sure what else we could have had, what other conversation we could have had.
okay, well, I'll tell you, for example, they only want something as big as that screen. Something as big as my end of my thumb might be worth $2 million if it's a rare Hope diamond. Something as big as a baseball card could be worth millions of dollars. We heard Mr. Nishamkin, I don't know if I think he is on.
You talk about stained glass.
It could be stained glass, it could be the organ. And it could be all the things you've recited. We collectively don't have the expertise to know what the value is.
Absolutely.
And what Mr. Fehrenbach just said to me was, the TNM will seek out the market to identify all venues. That to me is not sufficient. We need a plan. These artifacts could be worth $5,000, maybe it's just whatever the organ is worth melted down, I don't know. They could be worth $1 million, I don't know. And if we're gonna have somebody seeking out all venues, that doesn't sound like an expert in the field identifying the
Well,
value of these
I
artifacts.
can tell you that the salvage person from Asbury Park that came in said the value on any number of these things has dropped significantly because of the glut in the inventory. And by the fact that they came back and said, we're really not interested, which surprised me because I thought they would have an interest, kind of indicates that. Now, that's again, not to say that we're not going to salvage those items. We're going to salvage those items. But if you go through that church, as I went through, it was actually an interesting exercise to go through with a salvage person. There wasn't a lot of value with the exception of pews, stained glass, pipe organ, woodwork, but they said that has some value. Everything else in the church, she said, basically not there.
I understand that. You keep rattling those 3 or 4 or 5 things off: the church, the pews, the organ,
Right.
the stained glass. As if nothing else might have that much value, but those might have substantial value, and we are not engaging the expert that we need to tell us what that value is, and that's the shortcoming as I see it. Beyond the fees themselves, but that's the shortcoming I see in this current proposal. There's a throwaway paragraph about, oh, we'll look into the artifacts.
We were very specific with TNM. They understand that this needs to be part of the bid spec and the development of the bid spec. But they did say to us specifically, we're gonna need that inventory from you. I don't know what else to say relative to pews, stained glass, pipe organ, woodwork.
Well, I mean, I know
Because that's what is in that church right now.
the guy from Ocean Grove said it's nominal, so that should be good enough. I'm just thinking for those of us who care about the borough resources and care about maximizing the value of what could be very valuable artifacts, I think we need an expert. I think we need, there are businesses that go in and say, that's Tiffany, that's just not a 2 by 3 foot square pane of stained glass, that's Tiffany stained glass, and that's worth $500,000. And how do we know that's Tiffany? If the guy from Ocean Grove or the guy from Asbury says, no, that's stained glass, it's probably, we got plenty of that stuff. All these churches going out of business. I'm saying we need an expert in this field that goes out, says, that's worth that, that's worth that. And maybe it's an auction house. Maybe it's an entity that is in the business of selling 100-year-old artifacts. Maybe they specialize in churches. I don't know. But we don't, I mean, this is potentially a very valuable asset for the borough. And we're just basically saying, let's hire an engineer, 50,000 more than I think we probably need to spend. And it's an engineer that doesn't have expertise in this area. So between the cost, in terms of, I think there's a better way to do the procurement. And in terms of the artifacts, I don't think this is in the borough's best interest, and certainly not in managing our assets' best interest. That's my opinion. I wanted to make sure I said that before we had any official vote.
Okay. I appreciate it. I can only tell you that TNM, I think when they did the analysis on the church and they brought the appropriate engineers in, they brought the right engineers and the right expertise to bear when they did the analysis, and they provided us all that information. I don't see that they're going to do anything less than that going to this phase. I just think they're a very professional company. They're involved in demolitions. They're going to get those experts in. They have told us to start thinking about what that inventory looks like, so that they're referencing to the right people, the right information.
I agree. For the record, I think they are a very professional company. This is not about TNM. This is about the fact that if they're going to go and bring in experts and engage subcontractors, and they're going to do that all in the same cost, we might be having a different discussion. But if they're going to do all that, and then they're going to tell us to engage all these additional experts, it's another 20,000. I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know how much they're gonna charge.
They're gonna
It's
build
not
that,
in the
they are
proposal.
building that into the bid spec, so the company that does the work and the demo is gonna be responsible physically doing that work,
Yeah,
not TNM.
well, again, I'm talking about appraising the artifact, whatever the artifacts are, architectural salvage. Give me a process, how they're gonna appraise it, how they're going to find avenues for sale. I think you've got to look at a demolition holistically. You can't just say, go knock down the building and we'll tell them, say.
We're not saying that. By the fact that we're talking to TNM and said very specifically, this has come up numerous times, and we know that that's gonna be built into the bid spec. It will be built into the bid spec. TNM understands the gravity of it. So I think you're pointing to something that we are covering, and I think we'll cover adequately.
I feel like I've had this conversation 100 times. We will do this, we will do this, we will do this, and I believed it 100 times. I need it in writing for me at this point.
We will be happy to put it in writing. TNM, I'm sure, could put that in writing for us, because Mr. Fehrenbeck, I mean, TNM was very clear that they were gonna cover this, were they not?
Yes.
I don't know what that means, so let's move on, let's move on.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve 2023-223.
I'll second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
No,
Mr. Gubatose?
No,
Mr. Weber?
Mr. Weber's recused.
Well, I'm able to say that myself, but thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm gonna abstain, thanks.
Mayor Fox?
Yes, unfortunately, you know, I think we just continue to hold this. This is a process that is a tedious process, a difficult process. I don't think we're gonna get a better approach than we put together with TNM. I'm sorry, with TNM, with the RFQ that we did. This is unfortunate that we're holding this up again. I just question the motivation.
I
of
would
doing
say
it. Thank you.
if this,
Let's
if
move to 2023-224.
this administration, Mr. Mayor, had more thorough specifications built into the proposal. And we could see what TNM was gonna do, and we don't just have to rely on you saying, I believe they're gonna do a great job. They're a really high quality firm. Give us this.
I
give
did
us-
not say that. I did say that they're a quality firm and I believe they're gonna do a good job. But they are specifically going to build into the bid spec, the salvage
I'd
operation.
like to see how they're gonna do that. How do they do that? What experts do they bring in? Is there additional charge? Do they?
There is an additional charge from the charge that they gave us. There is not.
It's not in the proposal.
We specifically asked that question. Is that included in the proposal? They said yes. They said yes.
Thank you.
Unfortunate. Okay, 2023-224, authorizing a minor encroachment of entry pathway, including the 2 stairs, existing driveway to the 704 4th Avenue, aka Block 58, Lot 12, to be located within municipal building right away.
There are no questions. I'll second. Or did you make did you make the motion? Chuck?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
yes,
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes,
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
There is an additional item that needs to be considered this evening.
Yes.
That I communicated to all of the governing body members about on Monday evening. It deals with what I believe many of you were under the impression existed, but as the result of questions raised by Mr. Alawa and reviewed and confirmed by the borough attorney, that the auditor needs a resolution of the governing body authorizing Alawa and Company to perform the 2022 municipal audit and to authorize the mayor to execute a letter of engagement with Alawa as per the company's proposal. The company's proposal was for a total cost of $29,000 for the audit for the year 2022. Mr. Cannon may be in a position to be able to tell you the way that resolution would read.
This is authorizing the award of a non-pairing open contract for the performance of 2022 municipal audits. So we're gonna have to make a motion to amend the agenda. And long story short, Mr. Hollow was, you guys thought you were approving him for the 2022 audit, but his underlying letter on resolution 139/2022 had 2021 in it. And so this is to approve his proposal dated November 25th, 2022, which I believe the administrator is all sent to you.
Mr. Cannon, did you see the email I sent you and Mr. Fehrenbach a couple hours ago?
No, let me check for it.
It basically, you say, and you're right, it does reference the 2022 audit resolution. There were two resolutions for the residents' benefit. The 2021 audit, no questions. 2022 audit, separate resolution. It referenced, it actually gave the right time frame. It said that you're doing a 2022 audit, but it referenced his proposal for 2021. And my question to you is, referencing that proposal, can that be viewed as like just an administrative error, de minimis in nature that effectively we've already approved him and we don't need to approve him tonight?
So I think all of us here, I think that it is, yeah, it really is a typo and error. But the auditor would like a fully vetted proper, it's at the end of the day, he's the one doing the work and he wants the proper resolution.
I think what
So-
he wants from me is a memo basically saying that if we all agree that I can provide that memo to him, then they're already scheduled to meet next week, next Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really even need a resolution at this moment. It's really, if we all agree in this room that you all intended to give him the 2022 audit, which is literally what I know two of you weren't here, but the three that we're all saying you're giving him the 2022 audit. If the resolution just wasn't correct. If you guys are okay with that, the mayor can move forward, Greg, and we'll have a resolution on the next agenda to ratify it, if that works with everybody.
Thank you. My only other related question is one of procedure. This was not noticed to the public. I've already communicated in writing that I am okay with that. In fact, I'm encouraging us to consider that path. But that said, are we able to make this decision tonight, given that this was not noticed to the public?
So that's an interesting question, because the ordinance under which we remove that obligation, well, Mr. Cohen is sitting here and has enforced this rule before. But as I don't know if you know, one of the ordinances that was recently passed in chapter 5 took that strict 48-hour notice out of the ordinance, I believe. I don't know if it's currently in place at the moment. And so it would be better if everyone gave their assent here as a straw poll, doing it right in front of the public. And the formal action is put on the next agenda and taken at the next meeting to ratify that decision.
I have a question, because he has not started the audit, correct?
No, with the audit.
No, he has to.
But just to clarify, the majority of the audit work, a lot of the audit work is done by HFA, by the team at HFA. They prepare the AFS, they prepare a number of reports, they prepare a number of worksheets, which they have done. Now it's just a matter of sitting down, handing over that information, and then the OWL would start the tests, the, checking of the reports, validating balances, the work that they would do.
So did he say the reason that he hasn't done it is because he's not confident that we gave him that authority or gave him that
No,
position?
the reason I had been in contact with him once or twice over the last few months. He has signed off on some things for us in the context of being a quote holdover. He received a memo from us saying that any work you do won't be paid for. The audit is a more significant amount of work. It's a body of work that's going to require a couple of people, some weeks, and it's not a small task, even though HFA provides most of that financial information. So at that point, he just told us, I want to say, was it a week or so ago, that he was not, he would like a validation from us that
In short,
he
his
paid. Because basically he said, I'm not suing you guys if you don't pay me, because I don't sue municipalities. So he just wanted an assurance.
But his appointment is a subject of the lawsuit.
Right.
So he wanted to make sure his I's are dotted, his T's and crossed, because
He's just being
an
thorough.
auditor by trade.
And
And That's,
Found this
that's.
out a week ago, that he.
We just
It seemed
found
to
out,
me
we
like
just
they-
found out a day ago.
They would start auditing like early in the year and start doing, I know you're saying that HFA does a lot of it, but I would think that some of this work would have happened already and.
I was under the assumption that HFA and them and Oliver was talking, and when I talked to them probably about a week, I guess with Oliver was probably about a week and a half ago, he stated that he wasn't, and that's when I got a hold of Greg.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
No,
This is an
no, I'm sorry, so this is a
I
discussion.
understand, but are you talking about a non-agenda item? If so, when does this audit?
Excuse,
I know. but
excuse
this
me,
wasn't-
excuse me, you're out of order, I'm sorry.
About a week ago, maybe a little more, I was trying to find out where was the exit interview
For the audit.
for the audit. There's typically an exit interview following the end of an audit. I knew that HFA had performed a series of worksheets and had completed the AFS. And that all of that was in place. And so I'm saying, okay, so where's the exit interview? That is when I ended up finding out that Mr. Oliwa had a question about what was taking place. And I had heard at least a few members of the governing body say that they understood that Oliwa was the auditor for 2022. So if the council's saying he was the auditor for 2022, I'm under the assumption that he's the auditor for 2022. When I ask for the exit interview and I get a response, I haven't been appointed as the auditor, I then say to the clerk, can you give me the paperwork that indicates that he was appointed as the auditor? When I get the paperwork, I end up going back to him and saying, here's the paperwork, you're the auditor. He said, well, you didn't pick out this particular item. And given the notice I received from the governing body about not being paid if I haven't been authorized by the council, I don't believe I've been authorized by the council. I then raised the question with the attorney, because I figured that if the attorney gives me an opinion that will state that the auditor is Oliwa, then I can get him to move on and get this to happen. And initially, Mr. Cannon agreed with me that he was the auditor. And then when he went back and he reviewed the documents that Mr. Oliwa sent through, is when he was then convinced that that was the case. And that was late on Monday that he did it. I saw it Monday evening at 11:30 on Monday night. I sent you all the memorandum based upon the fact that there wasn't very much time. And I didn't want to wait another month for the September 13th meeting to be able to get this going. It ought to be going immediately because it should have been completed by now. I mean, there are audits that aren't completed until, August, September, October, but they're usually completed in the June, July, August, September period.
Right, and when Greg called me, I said, oh, no, I've heard, I was there for the meeting, they appointed him to the 2022 audit. The paperwork, Mr. Oliver was correct, and it's technically not in there.
Well, and Mr. Farbach, I want to make sure you don't feel defensive in any way. I actually commend you for looking for that exit interview, and for at least becoming aware, because the council was not aware that there was no audit underway. To your point, we did think that we had appointed him a year ago, May 10th. I was the one dissenting vote at the time, so I remember it very well. We did appoint him, and we all thought, including myself, that he was actively at work conducting an audit. Being an ex-auditor myself, I find it very difficult to understand how our administration was not aware that this audit was taking place. It should have started end of last year, but certainly early this year, completing the AFS, for example. That is not an audit task. That is building some spreadsheets and financial summaries.
But HFA does that for us, Oliver does not.
That's good, but they are not an auditor and he does the audit. And we all thought he was conducting an audit. And had you not been the person to look for the closure on that interview, we'd all be waiting for the audit to be delivered. Typically, what the timeframe is mid-July or end of July. I know there's been an extension to September, but this is something that should have been going on for 7 months. And thank you for identifying the fact that the auditor had questions and hadn't even begun the audit.
Good, thank you, Councilman. Do we need to just do a nod or straw poll on this and give?
Yeah, straw poll, if you're okay, then we'll ratify it on the agenda next meeting. Agenda published.
Straw poll, I say yes.
Yep.
Please, any objections to telling Mr. Oliver to go forward?
No. Okay, thank you.
Do we need to make a motion or anything for that?
No, we'll have a
We have a ratification resolution on the
That
next
gives
meeting.
the administrator the confidence to tell Mr. Oliver
Okay,
that his resolution will be on the next agenda, so they can start to go into general ledger.
okay.
And this will authorize the mayor to sign a letter of engagement.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, yes, we know that.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
It's unclear, it's maybe the decision, but it's a little bit pressure.
Who else? Okay, I think that's it for that. Number 12, announcements, none. Number 13, mayor and council reports. I can start that, just, second. Okay, I have a couple of comments. We'll start with the summer. We're continuing to have a interesting summer in 2023 in Bradley Beach. This last weekend, with an expectation of great weather, Mother Nature kind of threw a curveball at us Saturday and doused not only the beach with a couple of pretty big storms, but our summer concert series. So we are rescheduling that, but hopefully that's the end of bad weather for the next 3 weekends. Let's all hope that that's the case. We're hoping that the positive trend continues on the beachfront. We're seeing more and more crowds. One of the barometers we've used in the past, and I haven't reported on it until tonight, but I'll report kind of where we are. We were behind on badge sales on July 26th cumulatively, but as of August 15th, which is yesterday, we're at almost 1.5 million in total. It's about 30,000 more than the same period last year. So not only did we kind of recover from what we were behind a little bit a few weeks ago, but we're surpassing last year's amount. We budgeted 1.8 million in the forecast. Last year we came in, we also budgeted 1.8 million. We came in at 1.9 million. Hopefully that occurs again this year. Certainly we're going to gauge that with the weather and but we've had great crowds and a good experience at the beach this summer so far. We had talking about I'll spend a minute on the mayor's wellness walk. We had actually two over a two week period. We added something into this walk, a talk. And we had the head of geriatric services for Jersey Shore University Medical discuss healthy aging this past week, this past Saturday. We've got 3 more walks scheduled, one in September, October, and November. We're going to talk about happy feet in September. We're going to talk about healthy dogs in October, and we're going to talk about the importance of exercise in November. So we'll advertise that, and hopefully everybody will join us for that. An important topic that is operative and should be 12 months a year, but in August is international overdose awareness and the issue of drug abuse in our society. Last council meeting, July 26th, we did a proclamation authorizing memorial flags in Riley Park, signifying deaths in Monmouth County. The good news there is that there's much fewer flags up this year than were in 2022 and 2021. I can remember 2021, there were a lot of flags. And there's still, the good news is there's less flags. The bad news is there's still flags out there. So we've got more work to do. So we do support that. We ask on the 31st that you support local charities, you donate to Project Opioid, and there's some hashtags that we'll put on the website that can support those things. I actually got something today that National Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day is August 21st. So there's a lot of focus on this whole topic, and it's an important topic. So kind of continue on health, wellness, movement. This Saturday is a big day. We've got the Bradley Beach 5K. It's sponsored by the fire company. It's one of their big fundraisers. Please join and participate. You don't have to run, you can walk. It's 5K, so it's 3.1 miles. You start on Main Street and kind of go do kind of a U shape. Thanks to Todd Mignon, who really has been leading this for a number of years. Fire department's coordinating with a lot of volunteers, so we're looking forward to that. Tomorrow we have Songwriters on the Beach, Matthew Smith and Mike Pellegrino, and our fourth band on Saturday, from 5 to 7, The Verdict. It's going to tie into our Pirate Day. It's a reggae band, so we'll see how that goes. Biazzi Center replacement. We completed the punch list on the roof replacement. We had environmental testing in there today, along with our public works supervisor. That'll be a few days to get those results, but we're very optimistic about the level of contamination. We may be just having marginal renovations and changes that have to take place in the building, but it really looks pretty marginal at this point. For those who don't go to the north side of town along Fletcher Lake, you can see that the Ocean Grove project on the bulkhead is almost complete, dramatically improved. It really looks good. They've done a great job, and that's part of the Fletcher Lake Commission. They've been really pushing on that for a number of years, so we're glad to see that that's come to fruition. You might have noticed if you're on the promenade by the playground area, we had a small improvement to that. We put a shade cover out. We've gotten requests to put a little bit of shade in that area. We put one out this year. We're going to try it, and hopefully it works well, and we might add a few more in the right spots. We talked about Lorraine Avenue earlier tonight, so I don't think we need to spend any more time on that. Summer camp wrapped up on Friday. Another successful year, thanks to Courtney Pappas and her team. We do have a little bit of an issue that I still think is an issue, in the rec center.
I didn't get an end result this afternoon.
Yeah, when I was there Friday for their celebration, they were having problems with the bathrooms, and what we thought was just a clogged up drain has gone 120 feet or 220 feet. 220 feet. They've snaked already, and they can't seem to find a problem. So the big issue we have is one of the big events that the PTA runs. I think it's PTA or rec, or a combination of both. Is the back to school bingo, where we generate a lot of supplies for the kiddos. We might have to look at a different location if we can't get this squared away in the next few days. Hopefully we'll have a fix for that. On the library front, tomorrow there's a Road Trip Across America concert. Join pianist and vocalist Jay Daniels. They're going to embark on a journey across the U.S. It's an outdoor event on the library lawn. Please bring blankets and chairs. The weather looks pretty good for tomorrow. In case of bad weather, the concert will be moved indoors, but it should be okay, hopefully. Next Tuesday is the Great Plankton Race. There's going to grades K through 4 will explore the tiny plants and animals that drift in the ocean at the mercy of ocean currents. It's an indoor event, not in the ocean. Space is limited, registration required, and Puzzle Pandemonium is on August 29th. 3 to 5 person teams compete for a 300-piece puzzle. Can usually be done in an hour. So if you're competitive and you're a puzzle person, register, get your team together, and come on down. We'll continue to run this pilot on these feel good shuttles. For those who've seen them around town, it looks like that's going pretty well. I spoke to the CEO of the company, and he said he's really seen an uptick in Bradley Beach. So we'll see how that goes and assess it at the end of the season. It really should complement a number of activities in town. So where people either have parking or would rather not drive to an event. The last thing I'll report on is fire and first aid. First aid for operational period ending August 16, 2023. The squad responded to a 20-day calls and 18 night calls for a total of 38. 28 were for medical calls and 10 for fire. The squad conducted 1 drill for the safety and education of membership. The squad supplied medical overwatch for the 3 concerts in the park. Squad participated in a national night out with a display and handouts. Squad fulfilled 100% of their assignments for their operational period. Fire department, operational period ending August 16th. The department responded to 10 requests for the department. The department conducted 2 training drills for the safety and education of the members. The department participated in the National Night Out with display and handouts. The department fulfilled 100% of their assignments for the operational period. As always, they're looking for volunteers for fire and first aid. Both offer free training to qualified individuals. Anyone wishing to volunteer for the fire first aid can be found in the borough's website. As always, there's a cooperation between fire and first aid that allows them to answer citizens' needs for medical care and fire prevention. That is the end of my report. Thank you. Councilwoman Denola.
Thank you. So the Board of Ed had a meeting last night and they continued to have a very busy summer. They completed their local retreat at the firehouse. They worked on a strategic planning and setting goals for this new school year. They prepared a new student code of conduct. They reviewed board policy for possible changes. They also did a wonderful budgeting job for 2023 with a reduction in our school taxes. There are 191 students currently enrolled for the upcoming year. The preschool program has it also expanded, and they will be unveiling a new mascot. So keep your eyes peeled for him flying around town. Next is the shade tree. They also had a meeting August 2nd, and they had 8 applications to remove 12 trees. 4 of them were trees of heaven, so we're glad to see them go. And thanks to the Shade Tree Commission, 9 trees will be replacing those trees taken down. We have 10 wishing tree applications in. We have 2 honor me applications in. The next planting will be October 14th, 2023. Sylvan Lake is also looking for a grant of $12,500 to remove, unfortunately, 28 dead and dying ash trees. These are victims of the emerald boring beetle. Unfortunately, we've seen this all throughout the town, but we're working on replenishing them with our tree plantings. I'm also the liaison for the Tourism Commission, and we actually had 2 meetings. And according to the ordinance 2416, I am responsible for advising the governing body of the commission's work. In February, I inquired about the accounting status of the Tourism Trust account. 6 months later, I received it today. Our tourism director, Amy Hall, scheduled a meeting with Mayor Fox and Greg Fehrenbach last week to discuss the accounting for the Tourism Trust and events to date. Interestingly, at the start of the meeting, I was told that it was disrespectful that I praised the tourism director publicly, but did not include another borough employee who took an active role in coordinating our events. That was certainly not my intention, and I did not know the magnitude of the work that was put in by this additional employee. And I would like to say thank you very much. I appreciate it. However, this raised a new concern for me. I was informed a former business administrator directed that employee to take on tourism responsibilities, which is a violation of our current ordinance, chapter 2416. By ordinance, our tourism commission consists of only 1 employee, the director of tourism, and 4 commission members. This cannot be changed without amending the ordinance by council, which was never done. I was also told that the Tourism Trust accounting was not available as there are deviations between the annual financial statement, AFS, and the Edmunds system. This has been proven, and this is a problem. According to Edmunds, currently there is $76,845 in the tourism account. There was also a tourism commission meeting the next day, August 8th, via Zoom. And it was agreed in that meeting in September, the commission will discuss events that were well attended and cost efficient, and they'll start scheduling events for 2024, no discussions of cancellations. Unfortunately, the next day, 2 of the 3 Sunday concert series were canceled. The musician was informed that it was due to a lack of funding. They were not canceled by the Tourism Commission. Clearly, the Tourism Commission is having a lack of communication with the administration and a lack of information. Speaking of a lack of communication with the administration, Bradley Beach is facing major challenges in our administration. 1, our taxes are way up. 2, after much negotiation, the council agreed to adopt the mayor's 2023 budget, but we required a spend reduction plan to be delivered in 45 days. Almost 60 days later, we still do not have a detailed, actionable plan to reduce spending. 3, our processing of invoice payments to vendors is still being cleared up as we continue to pay invoices over 6 months late. 4, our administration struggles to assemble financial reports for the council to understand spending in various categories of expense, stating that there are more important priorities for them to address. 5, our 2022 audit report is due shortly, and just 1 day ago, the council learned the audit process has not yet even started. We are code red. It is not fair to ask Mr. Fehrenbach or any other person to perform the business administrator role on a part-time basis. We need a full-time BA with oversight and experience. Someone who has the time needed to get this borough back on track. Back in May, 3 months ago, the council interviewed 3 applicants selected as finalists by Mayor Fox. 3 council members attended those interviews and all agreed one candidate was the most qualified, with a master's in public administration and decades of experience working as a BA. Yet, we still are waiting for the mayor's nomination, despite him stating to the public his nomination would be imminent. I asked the mayor to add his BA nomination to tonight's agenda. I was told to wait until his lawsuit is settled. Bottom line, our employees deserve better. Our suppliers and vendors deserve better. And most of all, our residents of Bradley Beach deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Gubatose.
Hey, thank you, Councilwoman. I am the, well, actually, before I get to the liaison of the police, I just have a question for the borough administrator. I was not aware until this evening, earlier, that Brown and Brown been terminated. Did we replace them with a consultant?
No,
We did not. Okay. I would have thought if we had that, the council would have been involved in that, but so we're just without a. It was risk management and healthcare consultant both, right?
it was a risk management position in health benefits. And because the municipality is based on the state health benefits plan currently, and because it has a minor prescription plan through the UFCW, the union that represents clerical technical employees, there seemed no need for the risk management consulting services. And in line with the governing body's strong encouragement to find ways to be able to contain costs in the 2023 budget. And given the fact that there's a 90-day cancellation clause, as soon as I became aware of that, it was an administrative decision to get rid of it, to start saving money for the 2023 budget.
I guess the obvious question is, don't we need a consultant risk management and or healthcare consultant, or how do we replace that service.
we need a risk management person position for general liability, workers' compensation, et cetera, in terms of our relationship with the Monmouth Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. In terms of a state health benefit plan, every municipality I've worked with that has the state health benefits plan has had no risk manager for that purpose.
Okay, thank you. I would just ask in the future if the council could be informed of decisions after we've hired a professional and they're terminated, if we could just be made aware.
I'm trying to put all of that together for that report that we talked about last week. And since you just raised that, I would like to correct the perception of Councilwoman DeNoble that we attempted to present to you within that 45-day period the outline of the the financial management plan. We finally did so, I think, the following week. And immediately following presenting it to you, we presented it to the rest of the council. So they have received the financial management plan outline that shows the governing body, the items we're looking at, the way they're being categorized. And though this information was not provided to the rest of the council members, as I indicated to you, by the 31st of August, you will have received the categories 1, 2, and 3 of the proposed expenditures. The first category not requiring any governing body approval because it has no impact on level of service or policies. The second level requiring mayoral approval. The third level requiring the governing body's approval, which will then be presented to the governing body for you to take action on those items. And that will be, as we discussed, an evolving process that should have bi-weekly updates.
And Mr. Garnbach, just because you brought that up, Ms. DeNoble and I conferred as she drafted this, and I 100% support the comments she made. When we discussed this, I very clearly said to you, I did not feel this was a complete plan. It was a plan to create a plan. What you just described, the 3 categories of expenses, is what the plan, the so-called plan says. It does not say within those 3 categories, we will look at these issues specifically. I was looking for, I think the council was looking for, but I'll speak for myself. I was looking for an actionable plan with very specific initiatives that we, the council, could review and say, we like these first 5. By the way, timeframe for implementation, implications for the residents, potential dollar savings in 2023, potential dollar savings in 2024. And we, the council, could look at your plan and say, we like it, we like it, we like it. Don't think you should go there. And oh, by the way, there's 2 more we'd like you to add. And what you shared with me and then later with the rest of the council is a plan to create a plan. There's no actionable items on that plan. This termination of Brown and Brown is something you can absolutely include now and say accomplished. But unfortunately, you and I agreed to disagree. You had to leave the room after a lengthy 1.5-hour discussion in a bit of a hurry. I know you're running late for a meeting, but I just want to make sure that Ms. DeNoble's comments, the residents understand that I'm very much supportive of her comments. I don't think you and the mayor have yet delivered an actionable plan. I said that to the mayor after you left as well.
I would just make this one comment. If this were a borough form of government, if this were a township committee form of government, you would be perfectly correct. This is not either of those forms. And in this form, what we supplied you and the rest of the governing body members is what would typically be done in this form of government, whether it be a council manager form, it be a strong mayor form, or it be a small municipality form.
In this form of government, you, not you personally, but the administration, the mayor needs the council to approve the annual budget. We approved the budget after some negotiations and adjustments. We, the council, approved the adjustment, the budget, largely contingent upon receiving that spending plan. So regardless of the form of government, we introduced that notion of a spending plan, a spend reduction plan. And you and the mayor accepted the responsibility to deliver it. in 45 days.
We said that that was already underway and it has been underway and we have taken actions. And there is more than a shell. There's actual feedback that we're getting from department heads and summaries that we put together. So
On an ongoing basis, it's something we're still trying to cull from the different departments. And as I indicated to you, this is gonna be a bit of an evolving process as we move toward a 2024 budget. But we're trying to identify those things that can be done quickly and expeditiously in 2023.
Right.
So as to meet the other proposal I provided to you when we were putting this together, that we would do everything in our ability to be able to spend less than the budget authorized in 2023.
I am so confident you will try to do that. I am confident that we are not disagreeing. You are going to try to do everything you can, working with the department heads, working with vendors, working with county organizations to help us control spending. I would simply like to see what you plan to do in a written document so that we can review it, and we don't have that yet.
No, you'll have it by the end of the month.
Thank you. I am the police liaison, and I do have a report. Thank you, Detective Lieutenant Browning. A subject was arrested for theft of services. I'd love to know what services they were stealing, but we'll talk about that later. A local subject was arrested for driving while intoxicated. A juvenile from a neighboring town was taken into custody for a curfew violation. An officer from our K-9 unit was deployed to assist Asbury Park PD with a safety check in regard to one of their large summer events. Another officer from the unit was deployed to assist Neptune City on a traffic stop, which revealed a large amount of drugs and paraphernalia. We also get a monthly Bradley Beach Police Department monthly/annual activity report. And I've been trying to highlight a couple of facts for our residents as they look at this every month. Really notable was calls for service, and we're moving into the heat of the summer, July, lots of visitors and lots of activity in general. And calls for service are way up over 40%. In what was the high month of June, it's up 40%. It's triple what it was in January, for example. Parking summonses, I can't even do the math in my head, but it looks like it's a 20 times multiplier over January. We had 682 parking summonses in July, compared to 350 in June, and compared to 90 in May. So 682, a huge level of activity by our police department. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President.
No, I was thinking. Sylvan Lake, I am the liaison. They have a meeting. Unfortunately for me, as their liaison, they have a meeting tonight at 7 o'clock in Avon. But because of this one meeting for this month, it actually conflicted with Sylvan Lake. However, just as an update to the residents, Bradley Beach and Avon have agreed to share the cost of a goose management program. And I don't know a lot about it, but I can tell you the goose management program is going to go on for, I believe, a month. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, just to
And it
test
will involve a dog and motorized toy boats. You can imagine, I think, what those geese are in for. I have been in contact with the county. I mentioned this at the last meeting. I'm in a position now, after this meeting, to share more information with Mr. Fehrenbach, to establish handicapped pickup and drop off spaces on Ocean Avenue. I was told that the county considers parking a local issue. Their primary concerns are with traffic safety. So if we come to them with a plan to allow handicap drop off and handicap pickup, they're very likely to support us. And I was told that by my contact, Mike Ney, NEI. He did say that ultimately, once we kind of outline what this would look like, we will need to prepare an ordinance that identifies time limited parking for handicap drop offs. And after we create that ordinance, the county, we share that with the county, and then they would pass a resolution approving our ordinance. So it sounds very doable. I'm very excited about that because I think it's a critical need for handicapped individuals, especially those in wheelchairs. To be able to be dropped off at our beachfront, allow who's ever driving them to park and then go back and meet them, because right now that can be a problem for folks in wheelchairs. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Marco.
The land use board is going to be meeting tomorrow, here at 6:30. And they're going to be hearing two applications. The first is for a request for, a second 1-year extension of time for, 803 and 811 Main Street. The second application is for bulk variances, on Bradley Boulevard to repair/replace the current driveway and rear patio. And that is my report.
Thank you. Councilman Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to first thank all those probationary firefighters, because that was a bunch of names and, we know the challenges that the fire departments had. And they must be doing something right to get 5 new recruits like that, so that is awesome. Jane, you took the words out of my mouth on the shade tree. I was gonna say exactly how many trees, applications to remove trees, and that 4 of them were trees of heaven, which is good. That tree of heaven, that is the favorite hangout of the spotted lanternflies. If you've been seeing them around or seeing them on the beach, they're hanging out on the tree of heaven, which is another invasive species from China. I know we have some on town property that Mayor and I discussed were slated to be taken down when we do some work on the park on Lake Avenue. But I think there's some others on town property, and I'm actually gonna double back and make sure we're getting rid of those trees of heaven as well. That's a good thing. On the beach, this happened last month, but I had an experience where I was checking the surf at 4th Avenue early in the morning, and 2 young guys from DPW were sweeping with brooms, the Moby mats, which I thought was awesome. It warmed my heart. There was no noisy and annoying leaf blower going off and blowing sand and whatever. They were using brooms, and I was like, first I reveled in it for a while because it was great. But then I was like, hey guys, what's going on? How come you're not doing the leaf blower thing like you normally do? They explained there was something wrong with the leaf blowers. So it wasn't a change of policy I was looking for, but I was like, you're getting it done and it looks good and it works. And they're like, yeah, so I have hope that we can, eliminate the noise and the pollution and whatever of leaf blowers on the beachfront and just use the brooms and just sweep the Moby mats. And, they don't need to be swept every day. The fact that you won't encounter sand at the beach is kind of preposterous. So let's just sweep them once in a while. That'd be good. I also want to just mention the 5K this weekend. Obviously, hopefully people come out, and it should be mentioned that the fire department raises a lot of money on this, and then they spread it all around town and they send it back to local organizations here that are doing good things in Bradley Beach. Lots of people will be volunteering. The incoming 8th grade will be volunteering as well. So hopefully they got to get up pretty early. So hopefully they'll be able to do that. So in light of the 5K coming this weekend, I want to thank the DPW, the police, the fire, and just thank them all in advance because they're all going to be up early and it's a long day, and I want to thank them in advance. And we'll do it again in September when we meet. Greg, you're back, so I'm going to mention budget stuff. I just hope that we all, as a council and as a town, strive to lower our budget next year by the amount that it was raised this year. And I don't mean the all-in 13% or whatever it was, but whatever the municipal portion was. I can't remember if the exact number was 6.9 or whatever it was. But we should strive to lower our budget by that amount. I mean, the people of Bradley Beach deserve that. And on the subject of the budget action plan or whatever you want to call it, Greg, I did receive that. I appreciate that. I kind of agree with Councilman Gubitosi that it seemed to be a plan to make a plan. If something's forthcoming by the end of this month, that'd be great. I just want to give you one specific example of what I would be looking for in the plan. Something like, we are going to get rid of the curbside collection of plastic film, which happens on a monthly basis, or it's every other month now. And by doing that, we expect to save X amount of dollars. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking for in the plan, as opposed to we're going to talk to department heads and find out where they think they can save. I just think there's 2 different things. One's really specific, and hopefully there's a dollar amount in there, and one,
So that's a great example. With specificity to it, because it's a $3,500 annual cost, number one. Number two, we're actually talking to a bailing entity to pay us to bail for our town and maybe a couple other towns. So that's the kind of specificity we are working on.
Okay,
And the
good.
department had to provide that information.
That's terrific. And just to be clear, that's what, you know, when you said that, that's the kind of thing I thought would be in it, but this is, I'm happy if something like that, that's chock full of items like that is forthcoming. That'd be great. And that is the extent of my report.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now go to public comments. Second. Yes.
For Kenny 216, Brendan, before you start the timer, I want to ask one question to the lawyer. Am I allowed to discuss an email I received back from my email from Mayor Fox here? Sure. You're allowed to say whatever you want, as long as you're not vulgar, right? No, it's good. No, I just want to make sure. No, I mean, I don't plan to be, but I just want to make sure I could do that. Absolutely. Mayor Fox, I appreciate the email back. I would just like to read your response back to me because unfortunately I was a chemistry major, so it's actually pretty good at math. But you wrote back to me in regards to the 8 errors you had in your table, where you were reporting 1.09 or 1.132%. And you wrote back to me, you said, and I clearly stated where it was wrong, you wrote, the math is correct. In the case you mentioned, we should have altered the formula so the percentages were clear. It's not clear, correct. Thank you for that critique. See below the portrayal that you may find clear. First of all, I find that offensive, but you corrected it the way it should have been written. Okay, when you say it's a percentage, you report a percentage, not the incomplete calculation. And I really believe you need to go back to the town. You've sent it redacted communications many times, right after they come out, you send a new edited one. But it's not fair to be misleading our residents that people believe that we had a 1.0 something percentage for everything you listed. It's wrong. The math is not correct. Second, this is for the DA, a quick question. Just for clarification, I apologize for speaking out of order, but I thought that if something's on the agenda, we couldn't talk about it. But in your case that you had with the auditor, I'm a little bit concerned here because last meeting, we were here, Mayor Fox, I think Councilman Weber challenged Mayor Fox that we actually had an auditor, and it went on for a few minutes, and Mayor Fox was pretty explicit that we had an auditor. You're now telling us that the 2022 audit hasn't been started. How can we do a budget if the prior year was not even audited? Do we even know that was correct?
Well, first of all, New Jersey is peculiar among most states that adopt a budget before the year begins. New Jersey adopts a budget based on wanting to know what the cash condition is at the end of the prior year. That work and those worksheets in Bradley Beach are performed by Holman, Frenia, and Alice.
Okay, that's Egypt. I was gonna ask.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
And they're also auditors themselves, but they're not serving as auditors for the borough, which is one of the reasons why they are producing those worksheets, and one of the reasons why the Iowa contract is only 29,000 and not 50 or 60,000 as you would find in other municipalities.
Okay, but does the state require us to have an audit completed by a certain date?
They do. That date varies in various years. Sometimes it's May, but very few municipalities ever get it done in May.
Okay, so just a quick question, are we late? Did we miss the deadline?
I believe we will miss the deadline by the time this is done.
Okay.
And that's why I was looking for the exit interview. at the beginning of August, because I believe it's by the end of August it had to be completed at this time.
Okay, and then one last question, this is regarding the 45-day, I'm not talking about the dates, but, several meetings ago, see, this is a problem with chemistry major, you have actually a pretty good memory, but I know that we do employee training in this town I remember a while ago, we brought in a trainer. Has Bradley Beach ever really trained the senior managers in Bradley Beach on how to manage for productivity, how to properly budget? This is not being a negative, I mean, I'm actually trying to get ahead of this. I worked for a very, very tough company, like with zero-based budgeting, things like this, or practical process improvement, which I mentioned from the time. But I really think it would be well worth the money to actually train our high-level managers on how do you have productivity savings. Because it doesn't just come from managers, it comes from the people. I'm sorry to be really quick, but there are real opportunities in this town. Because I don't know what's going on with the project you're running here. But my bet would be you're gonna go to your leaders and you're gonna say, I need you to create some savings for the borough. And every manager's gonna tell you, I don't have any savings. But if you phrased it differently, and I don't know who reports to who in the town. And you said, no, you so-and-so leading this department, I want 10% in savings. The way that these managers behave is much different, right? It's not, I don't have anything. You say, no, I need 10. I don't have 10, then give me 20. And you will be amazed at how people will get more creative. And it usually comes from the people down below. Like, I'm sure in the police department, which you have a great police department, I'm sure you have a lot of cost saving ideas you never get to share. And I just think it's a great opportunity. And I really think that that should something this town should really look at doing.
Thank you.
Hopefully that was okay, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. It's only-
Julie Pettis, 605 North Avenue. I have a question for Mr. Mayor. The fact is, what is the issue with hiring a BA? That all this time has gone on. Can you please explain to the public why we don't have a BA? Because as to what Mr. Noble said, we are in code red. There are no two ways about it, and I would like to hear what is the issue that we cannot hire a
Well,
BA?
number one, we're not in code red. I disagree with that. You know, we are operating pretty well. We've done some significant improvements. I won't go into all that right now. The primary reason for not hiring is we want to see the outcome of this suit. The results were supposed to be, the judge said that he'd have it to us the first week of August.
So what does the suit have to do with hiring the BA?
We were advised by counsel not to until the suit was settled.
Okay, so pretty much what I'm hearing about this, because you are suing the town as being strong mayor. And let me finish, this is my time, okay? The fact of the matter is hiring a professional, working for some of the largest companies in the world. What you're doing is political, and you have an agenda. You gave a slate of 3 candidates, okay? Now, hiring managers, you present your people. This is what I do in my life. I've hired executives on down to warehouse workers. So I've done the gamut here, and I still do it today, okay? You gave the council 3 people, okay, that you chose. But yet, you did not hire that when they came to consensus and said, who was your top candidate? 3 people came to consensus as to who the top candidate was. Now, let's go back to your J&J days. This would be the same process you would follow in J&J. Because I know for myself, working for billion-dollar organizations, when you do not have consensus on a candidate will fail, okay? It's a given. And there's a reason why. You know what, as a hiring professional, sometimes we think somebody's so great, we like them as a person and this and that. But when you get other people's opinions, you get other feedback as to what someone thinks about the candidate. So for me, listening to you and from all the shenanigans that have been going on, and the fact that my taxes have been increased, I know that you're pushing a political agenda. and probably wanting to push someone who's not qualified for this role and why you're waiting for this lawsuit. Instead of doing what's right for Bradley Beach, we need an experience, a high-level experienced person who has done this, who manages million-dollar projects. Okay, that's what we need. We are a mess. And Larry, this is your leadership, why we are a mess. I am not done, okay? I am not done. And I find it offensive of the fact that these years you've been in here, we have pleaded with you to get along with people. You disregard residents, you're rude to residents. You were so rude to Mr. Gubitosi tonight, and it's on video, okay? You don't listen because you're always right. You know what? Nobody is always right. And it's a shame what you are destroying this town. You and your political affiliates, you put special interests. All we hear is about the professionals, the professionals. We don't hear about what's best for the residents. And I'm tired of listening to this. And I hope all you council members too realize this. Because if we don't have a good VA in here and someone who's highly qualified to be in this, we're gonna have another big 13.2% increase next year. Overspending. We don't have a revenue problem. We have an overspending. We can't even balance what our payables are and everything. It's a mess. And let me say again, and I've said this to you before, if you were at J&J, you would be relieved of your responsibilities, the way you have been running this town. And I'm surprised at you, because given your training, that you will not bend and you will not collaborate and you will not partner in this town. I am just absolutely offended and disappointed for someone who was supposed to run on leadership matters. Your leadership is a mess in this town. And I take no solace coming up here saying this, but enough is enough. Do what's best for this town and not what's best for your ego. It's time to step up and truly be a leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. No. This is.
Nancy Meadow, Ocean Park condominiums. I've said this before, when there's only one meeting a month, I shouldn't trust the amount of time to speak. I have too much to say in 5 minutes because it's been too long a time. But to show my priorities, the first thing I need to do is restate, as I've stated before, actions speak louder than words, but words matter. So that being said, Erica, I apologize. My unintentional poor vocabulary last meeting. Some disabilities are not this visible, and if you would like to discuss this further with me, you can call me on my number. That being said, someone else consistently degrades children by calling them kiddos. And as someone who uses the gavel because they don't like my adjectives, I find this offensive. We need to legislate. I know your hands are tied until this whole ridiculous lawsuit is over. But I was at the beach. There were, I think, 100 children. The gate guard told me there were 200 children. Came down. They go to the non-swimming part of the beach. They go in the water. There's only 2 lifeguards. They get them out, corral them down. Somebody should have been informed in advance that we were having, I'll go with the conservative number, 100 children. Along with their counselors, they were busy playing games by themselves. I think you also need to legislate how many events can go on in one day or one evening. It's my understanding that National Night Out, I went to for the first time. I could not believe that there were not alternative foods or alternative diets. But maybe I got there 15 minutes after it started and they were all gone. But how do you spread public works between that event and then an event at the other end of the boardwalk and beach? It's not, these are people that work for public works. Get that? They're not robots. They're people. How do you spread them that thin? And how do we as a community pay their overtime? That's where you make cuts. And when you cut out the recycling of the plastic, I know you want to save money, Mr. Weber, but I need you to legislate since you became legislators after Recyclegate. I don't know what people do when they trim their shrubs between June and September. Don't tell me to get inside my landscaper's truck and drive with them over to Public Works yard. I don't know why I can't have them place what they've trimmed in a garbage can and put it out to the curb on the designated day. But you wait 3 months, I mean, seriously, I've now paid twice, once in my taxes and then once to my landscaper. And I can't be the only old person here who can't get in somebody else's truck and go over to Public Works. And while we're discussing all of that, we're not discussing, I'm saying, my taxes. I've said this before. There were mailers enclosed in my taxes. I do not know why what is not included, it explains the alternate side of the street parking for snow removal. It goes to every single taxpayer who should be fined when either they or their renter or who's ever using, okay, the taxpayer needs to be responsible for that. And if you enclose it in a tax bill, everyone gets it. Other than, of course, we don't always get our mail delivered. And whatever we were discussing tonight about there be no extra fees, I think it was regarding, correct me if I'm wrong, regarding including certain things in the bid over the artifacts in the church. I do not believe what's not in writing. We were told there were no extra fees with Community Pass. Ask every, I can't say the word, person who gave their credit card to Community Pass whether or not they had a fee. So, Mr. Gubitosi, if it's not in writing, please do not say yes. Along with thank you for looking out for my pennies. Yes, we do want to tie the hands of the people that are signing these purchase orders. That is the goal. And it's different if there's an emergency in a crisis. But you know what? When I need to have a bid on something, one thing I say is, do you charge for estimates? So yes, we want to tie the hands, or at least I do. I'm not going to speak for anyone else. I didn't get to my Zoom meeting.
Thank you.
I don't say that because that's a duty too.
Yes. Yes.
First, well, my name is Beth Kepler from 504 Sentinel here in Bradley. First, I would like to thank Councilwoman DeNoble for her remarks this evening, and I would like to thank the council for looking out for our best interests while we're in the stronghold right now. Thank you, Mr. Fox, for being here for public comments this evening. You missed last week when I sped read my letter that I wrote on behalf of the residents here in town, asking for a special prosecutor to conduct a full fiscal examination of our financial records for the last 2 years, for 2023 and 2022. Based on what we're hearing tonight, I can see that that is a great idea, and I'm hoping that the New Jersey Attorney General is already on this. He received the letter along with 150 signatures that were submitted with the letter. And in the last 3 weeks, I'm very happy to report back to council that we are now up to 250 signatures, which would represent 20% of the total number, if you're calculating the total number of votes that voted in the election, the last mayoral election, which would be 1,200. That would work out to about 250 signatures in 21 days with no advertising, no solicitation, just people noticing. So moving on to other points that have been made, I'd like to know, have the Borough Beach employees been paid yet for their past due overtime that Ms. Humphreys, the previous administrator, had spoke of last July? That just a simple yes or no would be fine, because I have other
So
questions.
that matters in litigation, so we're not.
That has not-
We're not gonna comment.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so do we usually have a borough engineer? Is that one of the professionals that we're lacking as a result of the mayor's lawsuit against our duly elected council members? That's exactly.
Characterize it differently. There are three positions at issue in the lawsuit that you're discussing, the auditor, the engineer, the Oprah attorney, I'm sorry, the labor attorney,
So what we were discussing earlier about the money like that we've been putting out for the engineer on a per diem basis. That money could be eliminated from our expenditure, like the $30,000 that we've put out since January till now. If we had had a borough engineer that worked for the town, though that $30,000,
We've never had a borough engineer.
we've
working
never,
for the
is that something that we want to hire?
town. Not a town this size, no.
No, so what were the three positions again, one more time?
the three positions at issue are the labor attorney, borough auditor, and the borough engineer.
Okay, thank you. And so far, how much are the residents on the hook for your legal fees to date? Mr. Fox? Hello, Mr. Fox?
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm
Yeah,
trying to take some.
I asked you a question.
Yeah, and I heard your question. I don't know the answer to that question.
So you don't know how much we're paying for your attorney yet? You don't know, you don't have a ballpark?
I don't, I'm sorry.
Oh, I guess it's easy to not care when you're spending other people's money. Okay, well, I'll move on. So, I'm guessing that at this point, because I know that it's been mentioned several times that the judge hasn't issued a decision yet, which was due to come in early August, and I'm hypothesizing that perhaps that's a civil matter, and the matter that's been raised with the Attorney General is a criminal matter, which would mean that civil matters get put on hold until criminal matters can be resolved. So I'm not done. There's not a question pending. So I'm
Please
guessing,
state your
excuse me,
comments.
can you please hold the clock?
No, she's not gonna hold the clock.
Okay, well, then I'm not asking a question, I'm making a statement.
Yeah, I'm just asking you-
I'd like to reclaim my claim.
I'd like to ask you to gauge your tone, please.
I don't need to, sir.
Sorry.
I don't need to. So ask your borough attorney. I have not said anything out of line. And I know coming in here what the guidelines are. And you're the one who's out of line. Check with your attorney. And the other that we're paying for. And then the other thing I'd like to discuss is, I think that about sums it up. So when do you think you could get back to us? Is that something you can email me or have a meeting with me about? Like, can you come up with a number? Can you ask your attorney how much money have we not? Because none of us, I haven't consented to paying for your legal fees to sue the council that I elected. So how do I go about finding out how much of my money you're spending to sue my elected officials so that you can hold on to power for your political gain?
Thank you for your comments.
You didn't answer my question. There is a question there. That is pending. Since
Right.
you're so eager to
And
jump in,
I-
please
and
answer that.
I answered the question earlier that I don't know what the number is.
And how can I find that out? I want to know that answer. I have a right. I'm paying for it. I have a right to know.
When we're billed,
Can you find out the bill, please? Who is your attorney? Can you please put that on record, who your attorney is and what firm?
it is on record.
Can you mention it now or do you not know?
It's on record.
Who is your attorney, Mayor?
Victoria Flint.
Pardon me? Could you
Victoria
speak up?
Flint. Victoria Flint.
Victoria Flynn, from what law firm?
Flynn,
Flynn Law Firm. So she's a sole practitioner?
somewhat, yes.
Somewhat?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate, please?
I think she belongs to another.
So
legal
she's a
entity,
solo,
too.
she's a solo.
And can you ask her how much money we owe her? Can you send me an email? I'll provide you my email. I'd like to know. Can you put it in writing? How much money am I on the hook for, Mayor? Mayor,
Great, thanks for your comments.
I'm not done. My clock is not.
Okay.
So how do I find out? I'd like an answer to my question. I'm asking you a very specific question. I want to know to date, from the time you filed until now, what your legal fees are that we, the residents, are paying for, so that you can sue our council. To tie their hands behind their back so they can't do their job, so that you can run ramshot over the borough residents. Answer please my question. I've asked it several times.
Thanks for your comments. Your time's up. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
I'd like to know, please, the answer to my question that you did not answer. Are you refusing to answer?
No, your time's up and I don't have, I told you that I don't have the answer to that question.
But you didn't, I asked you, while I was in
We
time,
will be,
I asked you if I can find out.
we will be getting those numbers, but we just don't have them at this time.
When can I check back with you to check?
I don't know the answer to that.
just answered the question.
I'm sorry.
I just answered a question.
Thank you. Would you please, Mr. Cannon?
I
Thank
just
you.
answered a question. And I just answered a question.
If you'd like, yeah.
Thank
When you know that the lawsuit's decided, submit an open request 30 days later, and the bill should be here, and you're entitled to them as a citizen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Usually, there's one off Fourth Avenue. I just heard in this meeting tonight about children coming, 100 extra children coming to the beach. And I remember speaking to somebody in Avon that when camps or large numbers of children come to the beach, they are required to bring extra lifeguards with them. So I think that if this happens again, please inquire about that to see if there's extra protection because of the amount of people, the children that are coming to the beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. Mayor, I am quite horrified with this auditor situation. Just like when you did the budget, you didn't start till March. Now we're gonna start the audit when it should have been almost turned in. Mr. Fernback, for your date for the audit, just like the DCA Local Finance Board took away our 2.5% cap. They also extended your time till September 30th. So you have 45 days to get that audited.
Then it probably will be configured in time.
I would hope so. But it's quite embarrassing, and I just, Mayor, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Mr. Kernbach was very professional, he found out about it, but Miss Humphrey was here for 4 months. She didn't know, no interactions. Mr. Menino of HFA is supposed to be interacting with these people. He doesn't, does he assume, like you, Mayor? You just, everybody, and you made an assumption that it was getting done? That's scary to me. You're just assuming it's happening. It's a very important document, and I have to tell you, from back here, it appears that you don't want us to have the numbers. Let's push those numbers out. We're still dealing with the 13%. It's the most embarrassing thing I've ever heard. And we've been through this before with Mayor Engelstad. Mr. Stankiewicz always submitted it late and was very catty with his answers to the questions that we had. It's another embarrassment. I just said another administrative failure on your part. It's quite ridiculous. Now, also, I would really ask for something that Mayor Engelstad did. He did committees. There were council committees. Mr. Gubertosi was on the finance committee because he's a CPA. Mr. Weber was on the environmental committee. He was a work with public works too. Everyone had a committee. Everyone interacted. There's no information transfer here at all. That's the answer. That's the answer before the government gets changed. But for now, there should be committee appointments and there should be reports from each committee and information shared. It's really quite embarrassing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Greenberg. We might just have a stand.
Yep. Yeah, no, I was just waiting. I was waiting to be allowed to be unmuted. Okay, so Don Greenberg, 302 Park Place. The prior speakers got to talk about all the meaty stuff. So I guess I am stuck with this. Why in God's name is our town still using Roundup, a cancer-causing chemical that has negative effects on embryonic cells, placental cells? There's some page 25 of the bill list, 4 32-ounce bottles of Roundup bought to be used, of all places, near lakes to get into our water stream. So my question is, why are we still using this? There's other alternatives. You can get 20% vinegar, which is what I use at home, in gallon bottles that kills weeds. Why are we still using a cancer-causing chemical that has a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the manufacturer. Not only are we doing something that is harmful to the environment, are we putting ourselves at risk for a lawsuit?
I wasn't aware of that. and We will follow up on that. I appreciate that feedback because I was not aware of that either.
Yeah, it's on page 25 of the bill list if you want to look. And if you can get back to me on what's going to be done about that, I'll send my email to Erica.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else.
We have Deborah Hackins, well, we had Deborah Hackins. I don't see her now. Okay.
Okay, we'll close the meeting and, oh, I'm sorry. I thought everybody had raised their hands.
Jim Shishis, 144th Avenue. Apologize, I was not here earlier, so I didn't have an opportunity to hear everything that was related to whatever you're gonna do with the RFP and the sewer infrastructure study. However, I'd like to offer that since I personally have spent so much time on this with the strategic plan, as well as Rick Bartholomew, that if the end result is, and I hope it is, to repropose that you take advantage of the fact that we're here and at least give us an opportunity to make some comments and observations about the RFP. It's obvious to me that in view of what the BA described with these very prominent, competent firms coming up with something that is apples and oranges, that it has to be because of the way we wrote the RFP. I'm not sure who wrote it. It probably was not you, Mr. Fairbank. It may have been the previous BA. It doesn't resemble what we provided as guidelines, but it's pretty obvious that to get the papers back and these major companies that do this all the time, that are very qualified, it has to be in the lack of decision somehow. So I'm not sure what you're gonna do, but I will say this. Everything that's being discussed these days about the need for us to assure you, the governing body, that we provide cost-effective services for the residents, and this is one utility, that we have to exhaust all options that are available to us. It's not saying that we should sell. I don't know whether we should, but you can't know until you get professionals that do an independent, objective evaluation. So we must not let it drop. Pretty obvious, when we did our research and talked with so many towns that have taken this step, we weren't cavalier about it. There must have been a good reason. And I'm not gonna suggest what it might be, because that's not, I think it should be based on the fact, whatever it is that comes out of these studies, you have to have that kind of information so you can make the right decision as the governing body. So again, I just reiterate the book would be helpful with that.
Thank you. Mr. Chair. Yes.
Good evening, Linda Duggan, 312 Brindley. First, I would like to say the National Night Out was fabulous. The kids loved it. The wonderful turnout that we had, everything was super. And I didn't understand why we had 3 events going on at the beach this time. Not 2, but 3. A service on the beach. I guess it was a religious service, John and I both live. And then at the other end, so people couldn't go to both. So
Was it
it kind of
religious
was a waste
service
of
on the
money.
beach?
There was some kind of a,
So that was probably somebody who booked it, because we don't,
well, you should be involved with that and know what's going on at the beach.
well, no.
Because they're
people-
paying money to use
people-
beach,
Yeah, they,
correct?
they use money, yeah, but we're not involved from that perspective.
Well, they should know, the recreation department should know everything that's going on, all these different events. I would like to say that Miss Humphrey did mention last year, before she even said she was gonna leave, that we were gonna have a huge problem with our taxes. She mentioned the health insurance benefits going skyrocketing. That being said, I think it would have been astute of everybody that was on the previous council and you, Mayor, to go through everything that we were spending and maybe cut back on a lot of these festivals. Not needed. We needed to put the money in our coffers and save it. And I don't know where we're getting the money numbers for the beach, because I go to the beach and I don't think there's a huge crowd this year. Not.
Really?
Yeah, really.
I've got parking all the way up to.
There's parking all the way up. When you go to the beach, there's really not that many people at the beach.
They only tell you what the numbers are, the beach guys.
And what else? Oh, I have to ask, did they put up one-way signs more in town? I always complain about the side triangles, right? I'm a side triangle person. I did notice that on my street, if you're going towards the ocean on Madison, there's a one-way sign on both sides of the street now. So you can see it coming and you can see it going, which I think has helped. And I didn't notice it on the other streets, just one.
I'm not aware, I mean.
It looks like a new sign too, so I don't know if they put it up.
It's possible, I can ask that tomorrow.
And there's also a lot of speed signs covered by trees. I don't have the list in front of me, but I think the DPW should get that and maybe trim it away. And the speeding is terrible.
What is terrible? I'm sorry.
Speeding.
Oh, speeding.
It's out of control. Especially early in the morning, and we're all sleeping, and they're revving up the street. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Winter one thing for Captain Bradley. In reference to National Youth Out, I want to thank Chief Guido for a fantastic night. As well as Lieutenant Browning, the Star Wars stormtrooper. I don't know if anybody knows that, but that was it. Anyway, I believe that no one's mentioned all the businesses in town that donated all that food for National Night Out, the hamburgers, hot dogs, pizza, ice cream. I mean, the donations for the raffles that they had, dunk tank. I mean, this is all donated stuff to the police department, and again, I want to thank Chief Guida and Lieutenant Browning. I mean,
It's quite a long list because Sergeant Solaro listed everybody when she did her remarks. While people were waiting for the raffles, but they were gonna.
They had over 500 people attend that.
It's great, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we will make a motion to close and go into executive session. Make a motion to close.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yeah.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Just done right now.
What? Probably the last, no, I don't know. Did she send it for it from the to? It's like, you know, and there's been no, it's like, oh, I.